Sean, thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem.
How are you?
I'm not bad too. Not bad at all.
Good. So just for the benefit of the video, and for the people that might be watching, I'll just explain how you and I met, and then I'll hand over to you. So Sean and I have only really known each other for a couple of months, I would say. We were put in touch by a lady called Emma Kenny, who I spoke to on a radio station, and she kindly put me in touch with Sean. And then we've just sort of like kept in touch ever since. A few texts here and there, how you doing, and all the rest of it, which is really nice. So yeah, and here we are today. So Sean, if you want to just give us a bit of a talk about, just a bit of your background, your childhood, your golfing career, and all that sort of
stuff. Okay. Well, for you who don't know me, I'm 46 years old. I'm Sean Leake. I'm from Essex. And basically, I've suffered what I class as mental health issues, depression, anxiety and situation, probably for the last 4 to 5 years. But going back to my past, basically, obviously went to school, all those situations. But from a very young age, I was very fortunate. I was very good at sport. So particularly golf. I was very fortunate that I got to play golf from a very young age of about 10, progressed through playing county level golf, and then into the professional game. And from a very young age, I knew I was going to do that. So I probably didn't push myself at school as much as I needed to, because I knew the direction I wanted to go into. So from that point on, my life was mapped out. I knew where I was going. I was going to go and play golf for a living. I was going to go and do this, and I was going to live my dream. Did all that, got to about, 21, 22-ish. Started to think, I had a few bits of sponsorship that was helping me. I had lots of friends helping me and pushing me forward, but I wasn't doing as well as I wanted to do, and it wasn't going as I needed it to go. So I was looking at the bigger picture that playing probably wasn't the way to go. So I then became a fully qualified PGA golf professional. So that basically means in coaching, running a golf club, all of those sort of scenarios, club repair, everything. So I did like a 4-year degree course in becoming a teaching golf professional. So I became fully qualified. And again, loved the teaching, loved the coaching. Fantastic. But the biggest part of me that hated it was working every weekend of my life, because if you work in the leisure industry, obviously everyone's leisure time is their free time. So you have to work. And when I met my wife, it was a good way coming out of that. So I decided to leave that. I was probably about 28, 30 years old when I left that. And that was a hard thing to do. But with the support of my wife, she gave me the encouragement to do it, because I wasn't happy. Then did a little bit of sales in the golf industry with sales agents and that sort of stuff, and then became an engineer. But the main part of my story is probably my running. I started running. I did my first marathon in 2005. I did the London Marathon in 2005, and I did that off a whim, basically. One of my mates said, let's do it. So I did it, and we trained for it, but not properly. And I think I did it in about 4 hours, 50 something minutes, like that. And because of me and my competitive nature as a golf pro and sport, obviously weren't happy with that. My mate never did it again. I then ended up running numerous. I've done London Marathon 7 times. I've done 27 marathons. I've done ultra races and stuff like that. And I got to 2014, and I was thinking I need to do something different, something bigger, something better. And I decided I wanted to do 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 counties. And I basically said that to my wife. My wife thought I was bloody stupid for even thinking about it. But luckily enough, I got it off the ground. I did it for a local hospice where I live in Colchester, and managed to smash it in 2015. I mean, the running, I was doing probably 60 to 80 miles a week running. So I was running stupid amounts. I was as fit as a butcher's dog. And I raised 11.5 grand for the hospice, which is the main thing, which was amazing.
Yeah.
The problem with it is I was running away from me, which we'll get into in a minute, but I didn't actually realise that at the time. Because you know, my background was always sport, and that's all I've ever known. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's probably my story in a frame of where
Yeah.
and who I am. But over to you, my friend.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Lovely. Yeah. So just to so obviously one of the reasons I was put in touch with you through Emma Kenny is because you speak so openly about your mental health. I follow you on all the different platforms, and I think you're really, really good, and what you do is fantastic, and very inspirational. So yeah, just to explain, you know, what you do, what platforms you use, and why you do it.
Okay. Oh God, I'm on virtually every platform really. I'm on Facebook as the Mental Health Runner. I'm on Twitter as the Mental Health Runner. Instagram as the Mental Health Runner, and also on YouTube,
Mhm.
which I haven't done a great deal of lately. And I'm also looking at doing these sort of things, but also podcasts as well, because I think they're the way to go with it. So people can obviously listen in. And obviously, the reason I became probably open was more I had no choice through where I worked. I worked in a factory with about 800 people, and I was a maintenance engineer. So basically, we're in a small group, and this was a huge factory I worked in, and every department knew who I was. They know who you are because you're the maintenance people. You keep the place running. You do all the other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I disappeared off the face of the earth for about 9 months to a year, through basically trying to end my own life. And people in the factory all talk, and my friends were talking, and obviously in bits and pieces. And I realised that the only way to deal with this was to actually talk about it, because as much as it pains me to look at myself sometimes, the best way to deal with it is being open,
Yeah.
because we hide things in our face. You know, like when people say, "How are you?" The classic response is, "Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?" That's how we are built to respond. So I thought,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here and basically say to somebody, you know," and it's really hard because people don't know how to react. If you turn around and say to somebody, "I tried to end my own life," it sort of stops people in their breath. They don't know what to respond to you. They don't know, you know, they look at you as if to say, or can't look at you. There's so many responses, but it breaks that stigma around it, and also allows people to talk to you about it, to say to you, "Look, why did this happen to you? You know, what made you do that?" and all that sort of things. And I think, you know, when you start talking to people about it, it does set off things in their head where they've been in dark places, maybe not in the same dark places, but everything's on levels. But it
Yeah.
also lets them understand how other people might be feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the reason I do it, without
Yeah.
doubt. You know, it's just that bit of giving people that space to talk, and not be afraid to. Because I found at work that I did get loads of support. People were coming up to me and asking me stuff and saying, "I get that. I've had, you know, I've been depressed. I've, you know, felt like this. I felt I couldn't get out of bed in the morning." All of these sorts of scenarios, and
Yeah.
people are more drawn to you because you can actually, I
Open
think,
up.
yeah, you can open up. And I mean, I've always been lucky from my younger age, being a golf pro and whatever. I've always been able to talk. So
Yeah.
talk is my big plus. I can communicate with people at different levels and whatever. So I
Mhm.
look at it and I think, well, hang on a minute. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at the coaching side of it from my golf coaching. So why not coach people in how to cope? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because and that's my experiences. Hopefully, will give them that to move forward. So,
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. So that ties on lovely to the next question. How do you deal with your mental health now?
it can be different days. My biggest thing is probably to have freedom in my mind, and the way to free your mind a lot of the time is obviously to keep the mind active. The trouble is with me at the moment, with not having a job, it's very easy to sit down and ruminate in your thoughts. So your thoughts go over in your head all the time. You tend to sit there and not want to do anything.
Mm.
I tend to try to put stuff down to say I need to do this today and do that, do the other. I mean, obviously, I have to take my daughter to school every day, so you have to find reasons to get up in the morning and do stuff. So obviously, when you're working, you cope in different ways. So when I was working, my classic was, obviously, I've got a reason to get up for work. People used to say to me, "Oh, God, how do you go to work?" I said, "But work is a routine. It gives me a purpose. We all need routine in our lives to motivate ourselves." And sport is obviously a massive thing for me. So running, I don't run anywhere near as much as I used to, but I still run. And I probably run more now when I want to, which sounds a bit strange, but I don't really plan anything as such. I tend to do it off on a whim. And I've got involved recently with my son's athletics club. So I'm a running leader, so I can sort of help with coaching, but I'm actually going to do my coaching badges for running as well. So I can give something back on that. So I think the helping people is the big asset for coping. I find it easier to cope with my problems. And it's a tricky one, because when you're helping other people, you're off your own thoughts. When you are in your own thoughts, obviously you have to deal with them, but you learn to cope in different ways. And I now know that, yes, if I have a bad couple of hours or I have a bad day, there is tomorrow. As against when I first started something with this, I couldn't see any way out, but the world's ending and I can't cope anymore and I'm useless and worthless. It's just how your brain is triggered. But understanding that you can have a bad day. It's okay. It's just that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like we were saying before, that's one of the reasons I was become very quiet over the last month or two, because I know I needed to focus on my mental health.
Yeah.
And although, like you say, talking to people, it is an absolute godsend of an aid. I knew that I had to sort of take myself back to basics.
Yeah.
And really start to focus on what was going on up here.
Yeah.
So you obviously, I have as well, and I know you have. You spent some time in a psychiatric ward, if you don't mind, to explain about that and what that was like.
Yeah, no problem. I've been in 3 different ones. Basically, I've been in 2 in Essex, where I live, and my last one I ended up in Bristol, which was 250 miles away from where I lived. So that was very dramatic, but they were 3 very different places. Me personally, I don't feel they're the best places. A lot of the time, you need to be there, but I don't feel they're always the best places from the point of view of you need support and everything else like that. And they're very busy, very loud places at times. You learn a lot of different things while you're in there about other people's troubles, which is good. And it makes you more aware of your own, that maybe not so bad, but they're hard places to live in. They are hard places to live in because, one of the ones I ended up in Bristol, I was very fortunate. It was a private hospital, which I got put into by the NHS because there was no other beds anywhere. And I was in with a mixed ward, which I'd never been in before, but it was a very nice, you had your own space. But you also had different groups in different parts that used to meet up and have lunch and dinner and everything. And the bit I found really strange there is I was in with a group of people who had eating disorders. And what people don't really understand, I think, about mental health is it's lots of different things. It's not just depression, anxiety, it's addiction, it's all of those. Everything goes into the whole band. But when I was there, it made me look at things a lot different because you tend to, I think as human beings, we judge people. So when you look at somebody and they're doing something that's stupid and not, you don't know what their background is. You don't know why they've become that person. You don't know why that person's sleeping on the streets. You don't know all of those bits and pieces. And I think living in that environment and seeing that opened my eyes because they were being watched on everything they ate and do the other bits and pieces. And it opened my eyes. And there was a guy in one of the ones I was at. He wouldn't sleep in his room. He used to sleep on the floor in the living quarters area, like where the TV area was, because he couldn't sleep in a bed. And, I think they're good places because you need the respite. But I think sometimes when you need to clear your mind, sometimes they need to be a more of a relaxed environment. So you need like therapy care in a way. So somebody can go to somewhere. I don't know about you, Craig, but when you were in that place, You know, you need that one-on-one support, but you also need somebody to not necessarily put their arm around you, but, you know, let you know that it's safe to be here. Because I think when you first go in there, when you're at wit's end and you've, you know, every time I've ended up in there, the 3 times are when I've tried to take my own life. Now, when I got sent to Bristol, I mean, I had my parents over, I had the police turn up at my house, I had people turning up to tell me they're going to section me. And it's, you know, when you're in that moment, some of them things that happen are not what you need. I know it's needed to protect you, but how some of them are reacting to you. When somebody turns around and said to you, look, you're going 250 miles away from your family, that shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening, because if you're in distress, you know, there should be somewhere nearby that, you know, they can do that. And I think that's the reason I kicked off, probably, when I look back at it now. But when I look back at it now, that was probably the best thing I ever did, from the point of view of going away from everything. Because what I was saying earlier, that's the bit of going away from everything. So you're away from the whole issue, and then you can start to repeg your life back together. Because, you know, the things I learned in there, I did things like yoga, which I'd never really done before. I mean, when I first did a yoga class, I thought, you're having a laugh. But, you know, it's like your shoulders dropping. I remember the lady saying to me, like, the 3rd day we did it, and all of a sudden my shoulders dropped. It was just letting that tension go in your body. And you're not used to doing it. But I think any new skills you can learn to cope, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? You should never throw anything away. And I think that's where all of us talking is great, because what works for somebody doesn't for somebody else. But you might pick something up that you think, hang on a minute, you know, I do that. I mean, I listen to audiobooks. I'm not the best reader in the world, but audiobooks are quite relaxing to me. You know, you know, even when I'm going to sleep sometimes, it's like what they call white noise, isn't it? You know, I have it on, but it's taking my mind away from my thoughts. So,
oh, nice one. Yeah, I mean, I had very much similar experiences in there. It was when you first go in, that first day was absolutely overwhelming. I was shitting myself. There's no two other ways around it. You know, my wife, I was living in Hampshire at the time. I was living in near Reading, and I was, again, very fortunate to be put into a private private psychiatric ward, because, again, there was no beds in the local hospitals. So I was put to a priory, and it was second to none. I mean, the care was really good. The food was outstanding. I had this room, like almost booking into a hotel. But again, like you say, it's all, once you get in there and your wife or whoever leaves you, and then you're in that room and everything's taken off you, your toothpaste is taken off you, your toothbrush is taken off you, you've got nothing. It's all kept up at the reception, and you sort of like, that's when it sort of like hits home, and you think to yourself, I kept thinking to myself, how the hell have I got here? But then after like that first day or two, you've got your guard up, you know, you're walking around, there's a lot of strange things going on, there's a lot of strange loud noises going on. But after that, once you start getting to know people and you go to the common room and you start talking, I just found it really, and some of the groups were just fantastic. And it's some of the things I learned in there are the most important things I've learned in life. And like I referred earlier, is taking myself back to basics.
Of course it
is. That things like trying to be clean eating a bit more, sleep hygiene, and being off my phone, and all these different things, being mindful, doing a bit of yoga, which, you know, and everyone, you think yoga straight away, you think, oh god, you got a, you know, one leg up here, one leg down. But it's not that. It's not like that, is it? To start with,
it's about this, isn't it? It's about your head. It's not about the other bit.
So yeah, I mean, it was a scary time at the start of it, but when I came out there, I was like a new person. Personally.
Yeah, you see, that's what I say though, with the difference of levels though, because the first 2 I went into were nothing like those. You know, they were very institutionalized, I would say, probably. And again, like I say, I was fortunate with the last one. The food was amazing, which makes a massive difference. You had your own space. Yes, it's daunting. From the point of view of, you know, when you go in, they take your shoelaces off you, all the stuff like that, and stuff that people don't actually understand. You know, I remember a lady throwing hot coffee over somebody, you know, while I was in there. And, you know, she wasn't of right mind, don't get me wrong. But it's a shocking scenario because you're living in that 24/7.
Yeah.
But your acceptance of it is so much better because you don't judge it, because you're in there and you're living it. You don't judge the other person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
it's just that I think, you know, I think if someone went in there for a day and just lived it, you know, their aspects on life would be probably a hell of a lot different, because seeing it from a bird's eye view is a real true way of seeing it. Because you know, did you see the Stacey Dooley thing where she went in the psych ward thing?
No, I didn't know.
That's on iPlayer, and that's worth watching. I found it very hard to watch because
Yeah.
it brought back a lot of memories, but it did make you understand what it's like to live in that. And I think people need to see that, because, you know, and see how somebody can be at that state, but also come out the other side and be a lot better.
Yeah. What I found quite interesting, actually, which just sprung to mind, is so you go in there because you've just, you know, you're pretty much at the end of your life up here. And so you go in there very confused, very overwhelmed, and all the rest of it. By the time you come out of it, I certainly felt a lot better. But what I did witness is throughout the time, you obviously get better, and people are becoming and going. And towards the end, when I was thinking a lot clearer, and I knew I was going home, so I was excited for that, and I had all these different plans and all the rest of it. But there were people coming in that were where I was when I first came in. You're almost seeing that cycle, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. That's exactly how Alcohol Anonymous and drugs and all of the gambling ones work. Because I was a gambler for years, and I always say to people, that's the best therapy you can have. Seeing somebody coming in at rock bottom makes you remember why you don't do something. And the same is with mental health, because if you see somebody who is at rock bottom, you then look back at the picture of where you were. It's why it's very good sometimes to document your bad days as well as your good days, because it allows you to realize that the good days are there, but it's definitely okay to have that bad day, because there is tomorrow. And I think, you know, that's what you learn. You know, it's just a long road, and I think as long as you understand that you'll probably never be the same, but you'll be probably a better person in the end, because you'll actually understand yourself better.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it goes back to that old saying as well. You touched on it earlier, you know, not judging people, and that old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Because, you know, if you do walk, you know, like now when I walk down the street, down a high street, and you see someone acting strange or doing, or with a can of beer in their hand or whatever, and where before I might have consciously judged them in my head, not said anything, walked past and judged and thought, oh, what a mess, sort of thing. But now I look at people like, there's a story there. There's a reason why he's there or she's there, and you know, they just probably need help. And you think how many people just walk by and just sort of like, it's quite heartbreaking, isn't it? You know,
you know, when you look at somebody, you can't see what goes on inside their bonds. You can't understand what goes on inside there. And, you know, somebody who's got to that point that they're sleeping on a park bench and that scenario, you don't know who they were before. I mean, there's people out there who were professionals at all different sorts of things, and something's happened in their life that it's just tipped them over the edge, and they don't know what to do, and they may have lost everything, and they don't know how to rebuild, but they're not getting the help out there that they need. And people, like you say, walk past and really do judge, because they look at them and go like that. But I think if you've lived and you understand your own mental health, we're all a step away from that. If you look at it, you know, I think if you're honest with yourself, a lot of us have been fortunate that we are where we are now. You know, it's like upbringings and stuff like that. It's, you know, people judge some kids, but a lot of the time, you know, how you're brought up is a massive part of who you become. But you shouldn't judge somebody because they can't do something or whatever, because, you know, they're having to relearn again. You know, we're all uniquely the same, but very different.
Yeah.
And that's we all have the same struggles, but they're all on different levels, because, what you worry about and what I worry about will probably be totally different.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean your worry or my worry is any worse than him down the road's worry. It's what ticks in your head. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that people don't understand, because people go, oh, well, she's dealing with her mum and dad dying and this happening and all this other stuff, and I can't cope with just getting out of bed. It's not about a top trump scenario. It's about what you can deal with in that moment. And that is why mental illness is so hard to treat, because it is invisible.
Yeah, definitely. So how has your personal mental health affected your life, your family life, and so on?
I'm very fortunate. I've got an amazing wife. Ever since everything that's happened in my life, like I say, with gambling, for instance, which is probably part of was hiding away from my depression when I think about it now. Obviously, then trying to kill myself 3 times. She stuck by me and everything. She's been there to support me all the way through it. I've got 2 kids. My daughter's 8, my son's 13. He's 14 next month. I find it very difficult sometimes, because he knows when I'm not having a good day, because he lives with it. He can understand it. And I think that's the bit that I struggle with, because he supports me sometimes, and I don't like that. Just from being a dad now, I just don't like feeling that vulnerability to my son, which is stupid, but that's because I feel I should be looking after him. But there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It definitely helps him in a way that I'm open about it, and it allows him to talk, which he does, which is obviously a good thing. My parents have been really supportive as well, really, really supportive. And all my friends, I mean, obviously some friends you do lose from it a little bit, maybe not lose them, but you lose contact with them because they don't know a little bit on how to deal with it, or don't want to deal with it. But I think your true friends, they just basically, they'll listen to you. And I think because of how I am now, everybody knows, like for instance, my tattoos on my hand and my arm, which talk about mental health. I don't hide away from it. I've got the scars on my arms from my self-harm, which I don't hide anymore, which I used to. I've got some terrible scars on my left arm, which I used to be embarrassed about. But now if anyone ever asks them, I just tell them. And I think that makes life so much easier. You're not telling lies about it. Do you know what I mean? It's just saying, yeah, it was part of my life. That scar on my arm, I can't hide. It is a scar because it was there as part of what happened. So, it's just living with it, and things like that. And I do get a lot more now. Like for instance, I did a mental health in sport certification the other day, like to try and help youngsters in sport. So because I do the training, so I can basically really spot the signs and also know what to talk about to them. And that's been taken really well with the kids and the parents and the group. They understand, they know my story, and they actually, and most of them embrace it from the point of view that you're allowing their kids to have a voice as well, which I think is a good thing. I think if we act more that way as adults, it will allow the future generation to think, well, I can say I'm having a shit day.
Do you know what? One of the hardest things I witnessed in there is, again, it goes back to the psychiatric ward, is that where I was in Southampton, the hospital was split between 3 levels. So the top level was people with eating disorders. The middle one was just was where I was an adult psychiatric ward. But the hardest bit was the bottom level, which was the children's ward, and it's like you weren't allowed to eat with them, so you'd all go in at different times and stuff like that. But you would see them in passing; they'd always be with like a carer or something like that. But seeing some young kids no older than 8, 9 years old in a psychiatric ward, you just think, Jesus, it
Yeah.
broke my heart, and I just
Yeah.
thought, it's so sad to see.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough is done to protect children from, well, not protect children from mental health, because we all have mental
Protect
health.
themselves from themselves, isn't it? It's what you
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I see what you're saying, and I totally get that. And I think the trouble is with the kids' mental health is, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors in families, and that's the horrible part about it. You don't know what some kids have to deal with and how they get to those places, but they should never, ever have to get to the point where, they don't want to be here anymore. I mean, we had a boy at my son's school about a month ago who jumped in front of a train, and he was 14 years old. And, that for me, that hit me like a ton of bricks, because it just made me think of suicide, but also my son, and, why couldn't nobody help him? Why could nobody have been there for him? Yes, he had lots of problems. He had lots of stuff, but he couldn't see any way out. And he probably spent, and this is what I was saying to people the other day when I was talking to a group of people, and I said, what people don't understand about suicide is you go backwards and forwards in your mind about doing it. You don't just act on it. He would have stood at that train line and probably thought, shall I?
Yeah.
And then thought no, or then he might have just done it, or he might have a couple of days before done the same thing. But what people don't understand is that bit of somebody, when he was walking over to there, somebody just saying hello to him or saying whatever. It's like saying hello to somebody. I know it sounds ridiculous, but when you walk past somebody, if you say hello to them, that person hasn't seen anybody for a few days and whatever, and they're stuck in their own mind and in their own thoughts. It just flicks a switch in their head, and it changes on what your mindset is. I think with suicide, I think people don't get that. I think people don't understand that if you said to somebody, are you going to commit suicide? You're not going to make them commit suicide.
No.
By asking them, you will actually probably save them, because you're going to actually open that question up. You're not actually hiding away from it. A lot of the trouble is with people is they may say to somebody, and they know somebody is in a really dark place. They may have known them for saying to them, look, are you feeling suicidal? That is not a bad thing to ask somebody. That's a good thing to ask somebody, because you're actually saying to somebody, look, if you are feeling like that, for God's sake, talk to me. Yeah. We can do this. We can talk about it, and we can move forward. I get it. I understand where it comes from. I understand those thoughts. I totally get where those come from. And I think if we can teach kids that them thoughts are normal, that is when we act on them is obviously the issue. So instead of acting on them, learn to talk about them. And that's the big crutch of the thing, because you'll never kill somebody from talking about it.
No.
You will never do that. It's not how it works. It's to do with your mindset. Your mindset, I don't know about you, but with me, when I first tried to take my life, I thought about it probably weeks before, but I remember sitting on the bed, and I popped out loads and loads of tablets on the bed. And I was on my own in the house, nobody else there. And they were all sitting there, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going to take these. Then didn't. Kept thinking. And then one split second, I just took the whole lot. Drunk them down, and I just sat on the bed. And I remember sitting there for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then just sat there and thought, what have I done? That was the initial thought in my head, what the hell have I done?
Yeah.
So I ring my wife in a panic, and I'm like, telling her what she said, well, I'm ringing an ambulance. So an ambulance turns up, and I don't really remember anything else as such. But all I remember is that bit of sitting on the bed. That's the bit that always ruminates with me, that sitting there, questions going backwards and forwards. And I think that people don't really understand with your mental health side, that you do go backwards and forwards. You're high then low, you're positive then negative. But when you get to that really dark place, it's like being in a hole when you can't reach the top edges. You can't get out anymore. It's like it's gone. You're there now, and it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think if people can understand that's what that feeling is, and it's okay, let's talk about it. It's
Yeah.
it's got to help. It has to help.
Yeah, definitely. So that again leads lovely on to my next and last question, is that for someone who might be watching this video now, who's struggling with their mental health in silence,
Yeah.
because they haven't quite yet put their hand up for help, what sort of personal guidance or help or advice could you give to them?
The main thing is use the supporters out there. That's the first thing I would say to people. Never be afraid to use the support. My biggest saviour probably over the years, and probably still is, I even spoke to them probably a couple of months ago, the Samaritans. More from the point of view of they don't judge, they just listen. They don't actually really talk much. They just let you talk.
Yeah.
And I think speaking to a stranger is definitely easier than speaking to a loved one, because I think when you talk to a loved one, you feel like you should be something else when you don't have to be.
Yeah.
And I think talking to a complete stranger on the telephone or on a video chat, whatever floats your boat, the initial time of doing it is probably the hardest point of doing it. The first time you pick up the phone and do it is the hardest point, because you don't know what to say. You don't want to talk, but you talk. So it's that bit in your mindset is saying, well, I need help, but I don't know how to get it. But if I ring that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say anything. And that's what goes on in your head. But once somebody is in that mindset, if you can get them to talk, 9 times out of 10, it will flow.
Yeah.
They'll let it all go. But it's allowing them to understand, like Samaritans, calm, shout, whatever ones you want to use. They're all there for a reason. And, that's the one thing I would say to people. Look, please do that. But also, don't be afraid to share how you feel to other people, because I'm sure if you said to anybody out there said to their friend, look, today I've had a shit day, my cat's been run over and this has happened, my mum's just dropped a bottle of milk in the living room and she's blaming me, and all these sorts of things, they're menial things, they're totally things, but they can tip you over the edge. It's never something massive. It's 9 times out of 10 this happening, and then a tiny little thing just breaks you. And I think if people can talk about that, I'm actually struggling, then when it does get to that point, people can understand that, I totally get it. And most people now, especially younger generation, I would say probably don't judge people quite as much, because I think they are being told that that's the way to do it. And with people like me, yourself, and other people doing what they're doing, will allow people to see that, don't get me wrong. Oh, I've got the cat in the room. Do you hear that? She just screamed at me. Hang on. Go on.
Yeah. Brilliant.
You thought that was me, didn't you?
No, I didn't. Well, you threw your voice.
But yeah, no, going back to that, I just think, like, if we keep doing this and doing the bits we do, I think we'll allow the other generations to actually believe that, let's talk about it. Let's be open. Let's let it go. And I think work and everything else, there is a lot of stresses in life. And I think, businesses are now starting to realise that they have to look after their workers' mental health, because if they don't, they're going to be, in effect, talked to about it. Because I think, none of us want to go to work. None of us want to go to work. We want to go to work where we can enjoy the surroundings and be around people. We don't want to go into work where we get full of stress. And this is part of the reason I say to people, while I'm looking for work, I do not want to throw myself into a job that doesn't inspire me anymore. I want to do something that I feel I get something from as much as other people do. And I think, your own mental health and well-being is so important. And all the money in the world doesn't make your life any happier. When I look back at, what I've got and what I have, does it make me happy? Probably not in my head. I need to be, I'm very fortunate. I've got a very caring wife, great family, and all the other things. I've got a roof over my head, and, I've got all the other bits and pieces. There's a lot of people out there a lot worse off, but there's also a lot of people a lot better off. But are they happier? Probably not. No. Again, it's having that thing that you get out of bed in the morning, you think, I'm looking forward to today, and I'm going to do this. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. And I think anyone out there that's, say, looking to do something different, you know, especially when you're young, don't be afraid to try it, because, you know, give it a go. You know, if it doesn't work, we're all scared of failure. Don't get me wrong. That's the thing that probably scares me the most, is failure now, being older. But unless you fail, you don't know. And I think, you know, I question everything I do, and I probably get myself in a tiz over it. But I still look at it and think, I want to do this. I may not know how to, but, you know, some days I can push harder than others, and that's just all you have to do, isn't it? You know, your own mental health is so important. Like you say, you've had a bad time over the last month, and you've stepped back and coming back. You know, sometimes when I'm pushing hard, I have to sometimes step away, and do other stuff. And, you know, doing the gardening or reading a book, or just sitting there being mindful, or going, like last night, I went out for a walk on my own. I had a video chat while I was walking, so I was just talking to myself. And it was lovely, because you're just on your own. You know, as much as you're talking to people that might be listening, you are just talking to yourself, and you're enjoying the surroundings. And I think that's the bit that, you know, we need to do more.
Mindfulness.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Sean, you're an absolute diamond, mate. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, loved it, mate.
It's very inspirational. Like I say, what I'll do is I'll get this shared far and wide.
Yep.
And like I say, mate, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
But any time, if you ever want to do it again or whatever, and, you know, have a chat about something different, by all means we can do that. And obviously I'll share it for you as well. So
happy days, mate. Happy days. Right, well, I'll say goodbye for now.
Okay, mate. All right, speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.